Hey guys, so as you can see it's getting to be Christmas and basically the holidays are just around the corner, so I thought in this video I'm going to talk to you about something that has absolutely nothing to do with Christmas, but hey, I thought I should mention it. So in this video we're going to talk about tooling and the perks of picking different programming languages basically, and the idea, or rather a very important consideration that you have to, in my opinion, make if you're going to make an informed decision about the different tools that you choose for your project. So let's get into it. Now, the kind of the red thread that I want you to take away from this little video of mine is going to be that this sentence basically: familiarity is the enemy of adoption, or innovation, if you want to call it that. That's not exactly true, but that is basically what the kind of what I'm going for here. What I'm saying is that the thing is that a lot of people, especially in more conservative languages such as in Java and C# and even in C++, the more conservative communities in programming have kind of, if you tell me if you recognize this: Node for Java developers, Elixir for Java developers, something 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 for Java developers, something something for C# developers. All of these videos that you see that are basically named for another, like I'm not saying that this is the case, but my interpretation of why this is happening is because it is very, very tricky, or it seems to be, to push any type of adoption of and like diversification of languages and tooling to these communities in general, because, and this is just my take on it, like, you may think that this is me basically saying, oh, you know, if you're a Java developer, you're like behind the curve, you're not innovating, you're not doing all these things, and that may be how it's coming off, but it's actually not, because I want to touch on something that I think is, it's a problem on both sides of this conversation. On the one side, you have people who work in the more, you know, the trendy languages and the diverse environments such as Node, and you see like Go and like all of these more trendy, hipper languages, Kotlin, etc., etc. And of course, nobody's noticing that I'm mentioning some of my favorite languages. Just, you know, anyway. And then you have the other side of this little spectrum, which is, as I said, like the more conservative communities that focus on, usually you find them in corporate, like corporate development, and it's going to be Java and C# for the most part. C++ as well, more conservative. So the thing is that there is something that not very many people are talking about. Since I spend most of my time in the more progressive and like innovative or like fast moving communities such as Node, for example, I only really hear them talk about how conservative and behind the curve like the other side is, like the corporate languages, and like, you know, Java's slow, everything's shit about Java, it's horrible, blah, yada, 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 so forth and so forth. But the thing is that although I would agree to a point and say that yes, I think it's very beneficial to have a healthy buzz around innovation and moving things forward and developing new ways of working and improving things. I think that's really important. I think that for example, the Node community does this very well. But, and this is the big but, there's a problem with that as well. There's actually a really big problem with it. Although I was saying earlier that familiarity is the enemy of innovation, well, innovation and change and progress is the enemy of productivity. What do I mean by that? Well, I mean that if you are constantly being swarmed with new tools, new ideas, new ways of working, and you keep on adopting these things, your productivity will go down. It's a fact of the matter. It is a fact that your productivity will go down. And what's even worse is that you will see a diversification in your tooling to the point where productivity will be at an all-time low because you have such entropy in all your tools, which means that the amount of people, like the people that work on your project, they need to have a more and more diverse, like you're basically creating entropy in your knowledge, and that's actually very, very dangerous if you want to be productive, because it's very difficult to have all these tools in your head. The worst part in the world is when you have some tech guy or like some hippie Node.js developer come into your project and introduce like a this is actually like, if you are hiring Node.js and like front-end specialists, here's a word of warning: make damn sure that the person that you're hiring is not just left to his own devices just because you can't be bothered with all the stuff that's happening on the front end. Because what will happen is that person, if it's not a seasoned veteran, he or she is going to start introducing a ton of libraries. And if he or she is in any way like a more junior profile who doesn't know exactly what they're adding to your stack, you are the one who's going to have to support it. You're the one who's going to have to learn all these libraries to be able to maintain the project, and everything will turn to mush. Because trust me, I see it all the time in Node. Especially in like front-end developers, they add libraries left and right, and they diversify their stack to the point where really only they themselves know what's going on. And what's even worse is that creates a dependency hell where you have tons of different libraries that may not even be supported anymore, and then you have to maintain it. That's a really big problem. I mean, I'm all for innovation, and I think innovation is great, but you don't have to go crazy with innovation is not adding like 1 million libraries to your tech stack. That's not innovation. So what I'm trying to say here is that the progression of tools is great, and I think we should keep on doing that. I think that Java and C# and these, like as I said, the corporate languages and the corporate communities should really take a page from that aspect, and they are. Like Java, Oracle is starting to get there, and C# are, like Microsoft, are actually taking some steps. You know, by corporate standards, this is going to be slow. It's going to take a time, and it's going to, you know, it's going to take a while to get there. But that is to be expected. And the thing is that I don't want you to think that just because you are in, like, how do I put this? You have to weigh things against each other, because the thing is that the people who are doing C# and Java, if they've been doing it for a long time, odds are that they are going to be able to produce high quality results much faster than you. Yeah, because if you're not an expert, like the longer you stay on one platform with one tool, of course you're going to get better at it. It's like you don't pick a professional football players aren't like playing lacrosse half of the time and then football. They are playing football. They are staying with one thing to get really good at that one thing. And that is a very beneficial situation to be in. Like it's actually not a downside at all. The problem is when you have people staying on one platform to the point where they get complacent, when they get too conservative, where they don't have a healthy dialogue with the more innovative communities. And we need to have that balance between innovation and stability, because if you go too crazy on innovation, you're just going to create problems for productivity. But if you go too far on the conservative side and you just stay with one thing, you can't move forward, or like the IT community doesn't move forward. So here's what I suggest to you the next time, especially this is going out to especially the junior developers out there. If you are thinking that, yeah, I'm going to build a project, it's going to be awesome, it's going to be, I'm probably because your opinion about things is going to color your decisions a lot. I've been there myself. I've done it 100 times. I've convinced myself that let's just say that right now you think that, well, cool, Go is really, really cool. It's a really, really cool language. And just because you like the language, you will start trying to convince yourself that the benefits of using Go over something like C# or Java is, there's a clear benefit there. Oh, you have all that performance. And Java is, for example, Java is slow, and I want a speedy, really, really speedy system, and I want to use C# because it's really fast. The problem is that is you convincing yourself that one single aspect of your development is going to outweigh all the benefits of having Java, for example, or any other language for that matter. And see, that's the thing. speed is relative. What do you mean by speed? Do you mean that if you're doing a high precision transaction system or like a high speeding trading system, then you shouldn't even be using Go. You should probably go down to C and like be at the very, very lowest level. But you're not thinking that, are you? Because you just want to use Go. That's why you're convincing yourself that the importance or the speed is so important that it's going to outweigh the benefits of using something more stable. Do you see what I'm saying? You have to be honest about these things. You have to, if you pick a language, you should consider one thing more over everything else, and that is how productive are you going to be able to be in that language. And the only time you should start convincing yourself of trying a different type of language, because remember, if you're not an expert in that new language, you're going to have to learn it, which is going to take down your productivity. So the thing that you're getting in return for choosing this other language has to outweigh the cost of lost productivity. Do you see what I'm saying? It's a trade. It's always a trade. That's why I, for the most part, use Node.js for a lot of the stuff that I do. It's because it's a very diverse language. I know it very well, and I can be very productive very quickly. So unless I'm doing something that really doesn't really fit in with what I want to do, in like where Node would be a very poor choice, I'm going to stick with it. It was the same thing when I do Java. Or rather, when I do Java, it's the exact same idea. So don't, this is my plea. Don't convince yourself that something that a language does a little bit better than another language is the whole story. And that's all I'm trying to say. This is just a friendly piece of advice. So, to the communities, Node.js people, stability is not a bad thing. The Java and C# guys are most likely going to be able to outprogram, like in terms of productivity and producing really good results. They're probably going to win. In general, they're probably going to do very well in that. Java, C#, C++, conservatives of the world, I think that what you're doing is great. I mean, most of the world's corporations run on the code that you are writing, and I absolutely adore you for writing that. But, step outside of your cubicle just once in a while, and let's have an open dialogue and learn from each other. Because I'm pretty sure that, I can't even believe I'm saying this again, I should pay Mark for this. I think that the issue is that the faster moving communities are mistaking change for progress. And that is a really good quote, because that's exactly what we want to avoid. We want to have true progress, and in order for us to have true progress, we need to balance the conservative stability part of the discussion with innovation. Hopefully this made sense to you. Have a great day.